All right, here we go. It is Friday afternoon, December the 19th. And as promised, we're out of the bottoms and we're way up high in the hills tonight. Going to keep the same strategy in targeting these overlooked natural late season food sources, but being at different elevation, we're going to be on a different type of food source. And down low, we're hunting that native grass and hedge leaves, maple leaves, that type of stuff. But here we're going to be targeting oaks, and specifically red oaks and black oaks. We're still going to be real tight to bedding, kind of more or less staging areas, I guess you want to call it, and try to catch these deer in daylight, obviously, feeding on these oaks before they head out to kind of the destination feed fields or whatever. And honestly, with the weather that we have, it's been very mild. I don't think these deer are they're not really forced to go to these standing corn fields or these soybean fields to really give them some energy because it is so mild. So I really feel like these deer are in this type of terrain, this elevation, are very comfortable just living in the oaks, bedding, feeding, and using all this natural browse. And this year we had a real good mass crop, so a lot of black oak, a lot of red oak on the ground still. And again, I think these deer are comfortable and happy feeding on those acorns and not really stacking up, in some of these traditional ag type areas because we just don't have the weather, not the cold weather that usually forces that kind of movement. So, and from a weather standpoint, we actually had a really kind of a goofy day yesterday. It was, yesterday at daylight, it was like 60 degrees, rain, really windy, just an odd December day. And today is bluebird, crystal clear, and the highs in the 30s. So a big change from just a weather standpoint, from temperature and pressure. But we also had a big wind shift that's happening really right now. It's 1 o'clock. And we'll kind of dive more into that as we get into the setup this evening and kind of break down what I think, kind of what we're set up on from a wind-based bedding standpoint, and maybe how that's changing right now with this big wind shift happening. We're up high elevation-wise, real high, but we're going to kind of be in this little draw section of timber that's kind of set up for west wind bedding, and it's got some good thermal cover as far as like cedars and stuff like that. But we're going to be on the kind of north end of that, and right now it's switching from west to straight out of the south. So, we might catch some of that movement of these deer switching beds as the wind changes, and might catch these deer up moving a little bit earlier tonight. So we're getting an early start, and we're going to slide in there and hopefully get a bead on something. I know there's bucks where we've been hunting in the bottoms, but I just think it's going to be tough sledding to get an arrow through some of that stuff. And, the other night hunting those scrapes, that could definitely work. We might try that in that zone again before the season's over, but I wanted to pop over here and get up in the hills and see what's going on here. So got a few weeks left in the season yet, and this is going to be our best weather day for the next 10 days. It's supposed to warm back up, but if we can get on deer on these oaks, pretty confident that we can, even, despite the warm weather, we can stay on them. We're going to shoot the bow here, make sure we're still on, and then we're going to have a long hike in, up and down some steep stuff to climb a tree. We'll see. I'm excited. Friday afternoon. No one else here at the moment, but that could change. But let's get after it. I'm excited. Alright, I was just telling y'all that I hadn't seen anyone yet, but I did run into someone at the parking lot. Nice guy. He's headed off to a different part of the property. We're going to dive off this real steep ridge down into this draw, but he did say he'd been seeing some deer where he's going. Shot a doe the other night. So we'll dive more into this spot once we get all set up in the tree. But it's a real steep ridge. Drop off into the bottom, hopefully get on some deer sign in those oaks down there. We got about 3 hours till dark, so we got to get moving and get set up. So let's go. Alright, we're all set up in the tree, finally. I find myself trying to get into smaller and smaller trees just because these big ones, always wrestling them and making more noise and more movement than you need to be making. I say smaller the better, to a point. Then they get too small, obviously, but we're in. Looks good. We're down in this little draw that connects to the main mountain or main ridge, whatever you want to call it. And out across here, you can kind of see that big ridge. And all of that sets up really good for west wind bedding. Makes all that kind of leeward. And yesterday, all day, last night, this morning, really all day today, until about 45 minutes ago, it's been a west wind. And it's, since about an hour ago, it's switched and it's coming straight south. So the idea is to catch these deer still bedded on that leeward ridge and catch them in this little drain, feeding on acorns as they make their way out to the main destination field or whatever you want to call it. But hopefully those deer are still bedded on that leeward ridge, and I'm hoping we might get some earlier movement with this wind shift. Might get them up switching beds, or maybe just up for the day, maybe. But you'll see there's a lot of red oak, pin oak, a couple of black oaks in here that these deer are hopefully feeding on. I got one main trail, kind of comes right up the draw from that big ridge, comes right through the bottom here, pretty much under the stand. So that's kind of the play. We'll see. We can also see, I mean, you can see a little bit. Got a couple of real big knobs of grass and CRP that, if they're cutting through there, you know, hopefully we get an eyeball on them and make a play on them at a later date. So that's kind of the setup. Change of pace anyway. It's nice to be in the hardwoods again, I tell you that. In oak woods. These deer have been shot at with the guns, been hammered all season. But the guns can't kill them all, so hopefully there's a scraggler or two left on this piece and we can figure them out and punch a tag, maybe. I'm gonna put my jacket on and enjoy this south wind blowing in my face. start. Wow. 3 o'clock. And we got 2 hours till dark. I haven't seen a deer that early in years. 3 things. I ranged her. She just stood up out there in that CRP. The deer was 62 yards, just stood up. So I think getting in here clean, getting the stand up, getting everything set up, I think we did that without alerting anything upwind of us. Second thing, notice like what she was eating. Just stood up, started feeding. We're a long way from crops. She stood up and just started eating whatever native browse was over there. It was eating like hard. It wasn't just taking a bite and walking. I mean, she was content feeding right there. And she started to get up the ridge. And we've had a south wind that's been very consistent. And she stood there for probably close to 10 minutes. All of a sudden she threw her head up. She no doubt caught a whiff of me sitting here. Came up the draw and had to kick around over to her somehow. She just kind of bounded over the ridge. She didn't blow, so. That was cool. That's a great start. Well, that's probably going to end it for tonight. All I saw is that one doe 2.5 hours ago. What do you do? Might have to just take a day and just scout, like from daylight to dark, just to get a better beat on something. This next week's gonna be real warm. Might not get out and hunt at all, but maybe take a day to stomp around and try to get something nailed down better. We'll see on the next video. Not sure when that's gonna be, but next time I get out, I'll film it. I'll edit it and I'll post it. So we'll talk to you then.